What if I told you that the $5 t-shirt you bought online could have a much bigger environmental cost than its price suggests? Every day, thousands of new fashion products appear on apps like Shein, a new dress, a new hoodie, a new trend. And just when you think you have seen everything, another thousand products appear. But behind those incredibly cheap prices is a question we need to ask. What happens to the planet when fashion becomes almost disposable? Today we are looking at the fast fashion business model, particularly the model popularized by companies like Shein is putting pressure on our environment. The fast fashion machine. Traditional fashion used to work around seasons. You might buy a few major collections throughout the year, but ultra fast fashion changed the game. Instead of producing relatively small collection months in advance, company can use digital data, social media trends, and rapid manufacturing to introduce huge number of styles. The result, fashions become faster and cheaper, but there is a problem. The faster we buy, the faster we throw away. According to United Nations Environment Program, the global textile sector produces around 92 million tons of waste every year, and the average lifespan of garments has been getting shorter. The problem with cheap. Let's imagine a t-shirt only a few dollars. The price feels harmless, but the actual product has a much longer journey. Raw materials have to produce, fabric has to be manufactured, the garment has to be dyed and assembled, it has to be packaged, then transported sometimes across the continent before finally reaching the customer. Every stage consumes resources. The United Nations Environment Program estimates that textile account for roughly 2 to 8% of global greenhouse gas emission and use enormous quantities of water. So the price tag does not tell the whole story. 3. The water problem. Fashion requires water, a lot of it. Cotton needs water to grow. Fabric processing requires water. Dyeing requires water, and washing synthetic clothing can release microplastic fibers. UNEP estimates that the textile sector uses around 215 trillion liters of water every year, equivalent to roughly 86 million Olympic-sized swimming pools. Think about that millions of swimming pools for clothing, plastic in your plastic in your clothes. Here's something many people don't think about. Some cheap clothing is not made primarily from natural fibers. It is made from synthetic materials such as polyester. And polyester is essentially a plastic-based fiber. When synthetic clothes are washed, tiny fibers can escape into wastewater. UNP estimates textile contributes around 9% of the microplastic pollution entering the ocean. That means the whole environmental story does not necessarily end when you buy the clothes. It can continue every time those clothes are washed. Lesson 5. The mountain of clothes. Now comes two of the biggest problems. Waste. Fast fashion encourages a cycle. See a trend, buy it, wear it, new trend appears, buy something else, and repeat it. And eventually, millions of unwanted garments have to go somewhere. The UNEP says that around 92 million tons of textile waste are produced globally each year. Some clothing is cycled, some is donated, but huge quantities still end up being dumped, burned, or sent to landfills. In some parts of the world, unwanted clothing has become an enormous waste problem. The Atacama Desert in Chile, for example, has become infamous for massive piles of discarded clothing. Lesson 6. The carbon footprint. There's another hidden cost. Carbon emission. Clothing does not magically appear inside the delivery package. Factory needs energy, raw materials needs processing, machine needs electricity, products needs transportation, warehouses needs energy, and packages have to travel to customers. Shein itself acknowledges that most of its emissions are in scope 3, meaning emissions across its wider value chain rather than simply from its own offices and facilities. That tells us something important. For a global fashion company, the biggest environmental challenge is not necessarily the office building, it is the entire supply chain. But is Shein the only problem? No, and this is important. Shein is one example of a much larger fashion problems. Other major fashion companies also produce enormous quantities of clothing. The real issue is the business model. More products, faster trends, lower prices, more purchases, shorter use, more waste. And blaming one company alone misses the bigger picture. The fashion industry itself is responsible for significant emission and water consumption, pollution and waste. Chapter 8. Shein says it is trying to change. To be fair, Shein is not ignoring the issue. The company says it has introduced sustainability programs, renewable energy electricity use in its operation, expanded recycled materials and developed emission reduction initiatives. For example, Shein reports that 9.2% of the polyester it is directly sourced for Shein brand products in 2025 were recycled. It has also reported initiatives involving recycled packaging and lower emission transportation. These efforts are worth acknowledging, but there is a bigger question. Can sustainability improvements keep up with a business model built around producing and selling huge amounts of clothing? That's the debate. The real pro 9 chapter 9. The real problem is our consumption. Maybe the most uncomfortable part of this story is not seen. It is us, because companies respond to demand. If millions of people constantly want new coats at extremely low prices, business have an initiative to keep producing them. The cycle becomes trend purchase where discard new trend purchase again, and the planet pays for every step. UNEP has warned that changing consumption patterns is an important part of making fashion more sustainable. What can chapter 10 what can we do? The solution is not necessarily to stop buying clothes completely. Instead, buy fewer things. Choose clothes you can wear repeatedly. Repair clothes instead of immediately replacing them. Donate or donate or resell items you no longer need. And before buying something simply because it's trending, ask, will I still want this 6 months from now? That one question can change your relationship with fast fashion. Shein did not even invent fast fashion, but companies like Shein have helped push fashion into an area where trends can appear and disappear incredibly quickly. And when fashions become disposable, the environmental consequences does not appear with it. They remain in landfills, in polluted waterways, in greenhouse gas emission, and in the enormous amount of resources required to keep the cycle moving. So the next time you see a shirt for an unbelievably low price, remember the price on the screen is not necessarily the real price. Someone, somewhere, and something somehow is paying the rest. The future of fashion does not have to be buying more. Maybe it should be about making we may already known last longer. If you found this video interesting, subscribe for more documentaries about technology, business, society, and the future of the planet. Thank you.